Hey everyone, this is Killer from the editing room. Had a little bit of technical difficulties with Smendrix's audio. You're going to hear we lose him at about 37 or 38 minutes in. But I did my best to recreate what he said, so we still have a show. We're getting better at this, but hope you guys still enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Jankyard, the one and only active podcast for Ashes Reborn, an extendable card game by Plaid Games. We're here to talk about all things Ashes, news, events, the meta, and in particular, what we like to call open-minded deck building. And who are we? Well, I have here a man who, if you paid a penny for his shmenny thoughts, you'd probably go broke. It's Schmendrix.
Yeah, never shy to share an opinion, but quality not.
Then there's the man who doesn't deck build out of enjoyment, but instead to try and make mom cry. It's Killer Cactus.
I'm currently crying myself right now. I'm a failure.
And of course, myself, the ever humble and sincere treatment.
Yeah, you provide treatment in the burn unit specifically.
At least I'm reliable, right? All right, so welcome everyone. 2 weeks. It feels like a lot longer. A lot's happened in 2 weeks.
Yeah, UK's had like 3 prime ministers.
Yeah, in the Ashes world, but yeah, in the real world, lots of this happened. So we just finished up AshCon 3, which hadn't yet started when we last did our episode, so it was pretty cool. I had a lot of fun. What about you guys?
AshCon's always awesome. If nothing else, it's just really cool to go on AshTechie at almost any given time during the week and see like 5 games going. And
yeah, I like the activity.
Yeah, Shuffle Bus is streaming every day, and Nick's involved and talking about stuff and playing extra matches, and it's just really cool.
I also like just the the variety that you see, because it is closed list, and and because there's new players as well, or players that at least we don't see typically in Shuffle Bus, so you get a lot of variety in the ideas that show up, and it's always good to see Red King in a tournament as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, and
I feel like I think closed list Ashes is, I think, why Jank or open-minded deck building in Ashes is so fun, because the combination of first 5 and closed list means you can really do some powerful off-the-wall things, which we definitely saw in AshCon. And I'm only a little bitter that I was not running the coolest Rin Whale deck in AshCon, which definitely...
Well,
yeah.
I didn't see him play it before, but you're like the pioneer as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's cool when he can get into the tournament, because he's always going to bring something innovative, and we can talk about that deck now or later, I guess. But I didn't see a ton of it either, but I know the theory, and I might have played him. I play him a lot on AshTechie, so I might have played against it once online. I can't remember at this point. All of our games run together, but the theory behind it's really cool, and he just has a way of making that kind of stuff work that the rest of us can only dream about. And it was cool. I'm glad he played a game on stream, because it's cool that everybody gets a chance to watch and see it.
Yeah, and I mean, the great news is that we were all winners, right? We all won our pods, so that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, we did.
Sweet dice.
Yeah, I can remember back to the time when I actually won games of Ashes and didn't let my team down last week.
Come on, and, that was a close game tonight.
Oh, come on.
So we're recording this the same night that Impossible German and Killer played the team tournament. So that's another thing that's going on right now in Slam Jams, is Carl created a team tourney. And it's a lot of fun building 3 different decks out of one set that, hopefully are all well balanced and competitive against some matchup against another team.
With no overlap in conjurations. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, really cool idea for a format for sure.
So we went directly from AshCon into that.
Yeah, I mean, so.
And we made the mistake of creating a team. I'm not sure.
Well, no, I think
wise.
that was fine. I think we just I don't know. We just didn't come through the first week, but that's okay.
We peaked at
AshCon. Bounce it
AshCon.
back. Yeah, we did. We peaked early.
Yeah, so Treatment won his game, which I'd love to hear about. I got absolutely destroyed by Nick. It was extremely rude. I think he's better that he has to send me more.
And it wasn't with Jessa.
He took it out on me. But it was it wasn't with Jessa. He just to talk about that game for a minute, because I think his deck is really cool and shows that he knows exactly how powerful the cards are that he's designing. He played a Tristan deck that basically beat me with Huntmaster, which Nick always loves to play round one, and I should have anticipated. But then Salamander Monk, Seafoam Snapper, Tidal Shift, and Tsunami Shot. And like I think he played 3 Tidal Shifts and 3 Tsunami Shots, and he would just Tidal Shift. He'd get his books activated early, then Tidal Shift into the biggest threat I had, and keep playing more Sallies and Snappers. And like that value engine on the spell board is really great. And when he's also exhausting your biggest threat every round, and then removing everything else with Tsunami Shots, it was really devastating. And he threw in I think he used a Wave Crash to swing for the win as well. So it was a really impressive deck. It felt like I was getting outraced by just outraced by something very simple, straightforward.
And for the listeners, what were you playing?
Effective.
What was your deck?
I was playing a Lulu mid-rangey 4-book. So the books were Butterfly Monk, Mirror Spirit, and I had 3 of to focus. What were my other 2 books? I had to change them around at the last minute. In any case, it was a 4-book, and I just could not establish a board presence basically at all. And my round 1 flex, I had a 2 dice flex in round 1, so I could flex between Fester and Ping, Choke and Ping, and then Ice Trap and Ping, depending on the matchup. So Ice Trap in like the Creepers matchup, for example. And I totally misread Nick's deck. He does have, I guess, Tetra in that deck, but he didn't first 5 them. And so I first 5 Choke to try and neutralize the first swing of the fish and just not have to worry about it. And really missed the Fester in round 1.
Yeah, that's tough with Tristan. I mean, it sounds like Nick basically played a Tristan base deck with Salamander Monk, and it's like all those other cards are Tristan cards, but that deck is good.
Huntmaster, yeah.
Or a Huntmaster too. Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
But like, just anytime Tristan plays 3 Tsunami Shots in a game and you don't Golden Veil any of them, you have a good chance of losing. I mean, Tsunami Shot's a really good card.
It was actually the main reason that I went with a Charm deck, is just because I was like, Tristan's going to be here, and I wanted the Veil, or at least a Veil. And
I had Veils in my AshCon deck for that reason. I think we'll see Golden Veil make, and we already have, right? But we will continue to see Golden Veil make a comeback just because Tsunami Shot is so darn good. But the other thing is, with Tristan's Magnify ability, that's hard to determine, right? Choke feels good to save 3 damage, if he uses fish, but then it's like, is it really worth losing a Fester or another book or an Ice Trap or something else in your first 5 just to save, 3 life on your Phoenixborn. I guess as Lulu maybe it is because you only have 16 life to start out. But it's so difficult especially when like he's probably bringing the best removal spell in the game to play in the first round. So if you don't devote everything to the battlefield, you're probably in trouble, right? So that's tough.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So the other 2 books so it was Butterfly Monk, Mirror Sphere, Tidal Crab, and Wishing Wing. So like I played a lot of Focused Mirror Spirits like 6 months ago. Before it was cool. And then I had not actually played it with Tidal Crab, so I wanted to do that. But there's an interesting fork with that deck, because if I first 5 Fester and he goes Fish,
yeah,
that's real rough. I don't think I guess he had the Huntmaster still to target, but don't think I probably would have gotten more consistent.
I mean, you could have still pinged, right? You had, if you drop Fish, you have the Frog ping, you stop the Fish that round, and then you still have Bolster for the ping Fester. Like I've seen Brian, Bill, when he played against Brian, where a lot of the time he was just sparking and then using it like right away, just to eliminate the threat, not even to try and get the extra value of the +1 attack. So it's always an interesting option as well, but it still feels bad.
For sure. Yeah, mistakes for me.
I have seen a lot of Mirror Spirits though lately. I think Carl and Brian have been playing them a lot. I'm not sure if Jesse has as well, but I do see a lot of games on AshTechie where Focused Mirror Spirits are around.
It's just a slept-on card. It was always good. It didn't need crap to be good, but now it's just it's just another reason to put them in. And now the good players are putting them in decks, so we're seeing them be more prevalent. Yeah,
we're paying attention.
Isn't that the way?
Yeah, Focused Mirror Spirit's interesting because ideally, the big thing that I think Tidal Crab brings to it is that you can still get some value out of the Mirror Spirits that you leave behind, the 0/2 Mirror Spirits, when you use the exhaustion effect and remove all the status tokens. And that's why I was originally playing them, and Lulu was the same idea, is that if I have to exhaust something with an unexhausted Mirror Spirit, I can still turn it into a 2/2 unit to swing.
Did you have Ocean's Gift as well? Because that's a good card that works really nicely.
I thought about it. I didn't actually end up going with it. I went with Explosive Growth as my one of alteration instead. But Ocean's Gift is really strong.
And then Killer, you guys played a mirror match, Xander, which was interesting.
We did. I didn't expect German to play Xander just because he always plays Xander. I thought he would bring something else, but he had said in the chat that he only brought Xander because he had saw Treatment's deck Flora had saw the Treatment's deck had Fate Reflection, and so didn't expect me to have any. But Treatment only had 1 Fate Reflection, and I still had the other 2, which was kind of nice, but didn't help me a ton in the game, especially when I'm playing River Scalds and forgetting to meditate beforehand to have the Fate Reflection ready. But they don't help when you don't have a Wolf die or a Time Power die up to use. Just that's a big time tip you just got from the Jankyard there. Fate Reflection does not work when you don't have a power die showing. It was a good game. I've been boo-hooing since the start of this podcast, but it was a good game. I played a Xander Ghostly Mount deck that I've been playing a lot of on AshTechie and actually doing pretty well with. I need to retool my first 5 a bit. I've been playing a first 5, and I did in this game too, with both Raptor Herder and Anchor Knot, and then the Ghostly Mount book and 2 1-cost books that leaves me with a bunch of dice left over. that I can usually use to reincarnate back a dead Anchornaut or Raptor Herder and play it again. But the last few games I've played with it, my opponents have been pretty savvy to, not kill the guys that I need to die so that I can't reincarnate them back. And my meditates in the first round have been fairly unlucky to the point where I can't find an ally to pull back. For instance, in this game, I did meditate a River Scald, which would have been excellent if the stupid thing wasn't chained. But there's nothing.
You also had the
Beast
Mage
to pull back. I did have the Beast Mage, but I couldn't afford to play it without and still play a mount. And
yeah,
I did go back and forth because I went second in the round, so it would have been a 4/4 Beast Mage
with the Terrifying.
I chose to play the mount. Yeah, I with Terrifying. Yeah, I chose to play the mount instead because I wanted it to survive the round, and I wanted to threaten. I wanted to make sure I could threaten the Crypt Guardian quickly enough that I knew was going to come out. I wanted to swing the 4/2 quick strike unit at it. But anyway, I mean, I chose the mount. I think it could have went either way. And would have used all my dice had I reincarnated the Beast Mage, but that didn't really kill me in round 1. It was more just like, I think at the end of round 3, the boards were clear except for my exhausted Salamander Monk, and I was down 2 life, so it was pretty close at that point. And I took a big board advantage in round 3, as a matter of fact. But that was also the round where I misplayed the Fate Reflection and could have had an even bigger board. But yeah, it came down to I had a top around lethal swing, but I needed a crescendo to clear the way, and he had the Fate Reflection to stop it. And that was pretty much all she wrote, but a very good game nonetheless.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun to watch. And I mean, on the note of Fate Reflection, one card that I still think is slept on is Seeds of Aggression. And it's actually another tool that I included in my deck because I anticipated people playing Fate Reflections. And it's just so good because it gets around that whole problem. And since I was also playing Soraya, I've had it in my deck, or a variation of the deck I played, because it helps with the self-clear. Like I made this deck long before Snapper came along. So it was always great to get that quick strike off with the Raven, and then when they think, oh, he can't summon another one, you get the Seeds of Aggression off, boom, clear something big, and then you're right back in it. And that actually, I think, saved my butt against Flora, who was playing Aerodel. And I think our match went an hour and 50 minutes, or an hour and 45.
Holy crap.
Yeah, there were a lot of spectators near the end, but it was grueling. Like, I was just mentally exhausted with all the possible play lines. She was playing a Foggy Bear, Massive Growth setup, from what I saw, with Gilder, and just trying to keep stuff on the board was really tough. Just every round, trying everything I could to bait out the water blasts. I was running Griffin, Raven, Snapper, and Gilder as well, with far too many Charm Dice, but I had Sunshield Sentries, Beast Tamers, and EVs, and then just a bunch of, Enchanted Violinist. I had a bunch of removal, and it came down to, I don't remember, I think she had 5 or 6 life, and I just managed to get the Seeds of Aggression plays at the right time where I could remove her bear, not give her a massive growth target, and then swing for the win. I think I won off of Sympathy Pain, actually, but it was brutal. She plays really well, and that deck, I think, without the restriction of the team event, would be super strong. Like, if she just had a couple more sort of key cards. But it's been fun so far. So, I mean, it's continuing. I don't know how long this format's going to be, but I recommend to anybody listening to watch the games when they're around because they're super cool and interesting. And there's a lot of, obviously, different ideas because of the deck restriction. So let's move on to some other news. We have now heard a lot more from Nick about the PvE. So
He was dropping gems all
yeah,
through
little hints here and
AshCon
there.
coverage.
Chaos Theory summarized it pretty good in the Discord, but at a high level, there is going to be a Chimera deck as well as a player deck, which is going to be mono ceremonial, which aims to use the master set primarily. So this is in an effort, which Nick had mentioned before, to make the buy-in for newer players or players interested in the co-op aspect of Ashes less daunting, because you just need the master set plus the new stuff. And we're getting at least 1.5 PvP deck worth of cards. Didn't sound like there's a new Phoenix Born, but at least the cards are going to be there. So it sounds pretty cool. What do you guys think?
I mean, I'm excited for it.
I'm
Go ahead,
excited.
Shmurda.
I mean, I think I think it sounds like they're trying to build in support for the precons and like make the precon experience interesting as well, which I think is a great on-ramp for new players. But also, to be totally honest, like there's a lot of cards that I just don't even consider playing competitive, even as an open-minded deck builder. And so if part of what the Chimera mode can do is bring new interest to older cards, even if you know just in that format, I think that'll be fun. It'll be fun to get cards out of the binder that I don't usually play with, and the idea of beating up on a giant monster out to destroy the world is always a good
Yeah,
time.
there's a lot of like, straight garbage ceremonial cards in the master set. I mean, 2 of them are actually on the screen right now in our Jankyard logo. I don't know if the plan is to make stuff like Cut the Strings or Blood Transfer or Bound Soul like worth playing. That'd be magical if you could make those cards good. But at the end of the day, I don't care, right? If that happens or not. I think it's cool that we have, as a guy with a 9-year-old son that wants to play games with his dad all the time, but is a little bit too, just too young to fully grasp what Ashes can do. Like having a co-op mode where I can sit down with him and help him, through stuff, and we're fighting together against a common enemy I think will be pretty cool. So for no other reason, I'm excited just about that. I think PvP is always going to be what I want the most, though. The Chimera mode will just be a icing on the cake for me that I'll mess around with my kid once in a while, probably. But as long as we're continuing to get PvP cards, and especially, I think he said that there was another card that can bring blood puppets onto the board, and I like me a good blood puppet, so I'm excited just to get another reason to put go after alt art blood puppets and get those things on the board and being used.
That would be pretty cool.
Puppet herder.
Well, I don't know if this was from Nick, because I didn't actually listen to a lot of the streams, but I think there was either Tuxedo or maybe it was Chaos Theory in the chats, or maybe it was Brian, V Jackson Brian, was mentioning something about support for Dread Wraiths, or another way of like adding wounds, which could be really cool. So who knows if, it is nice to, one of the things I'd like to see is making cards that already exist, but that are just like off the cusp better, because it is nice to buy, into the game and not feel like more than 50% of the cards are unusable. And I know that's when I started, I was looking at it and being like, well, everyone says these cards are bad, but how can I make them work? And so that's always been the fun challenge of deck building. And we've definitely seen in the last 4 sets particularly how some cards that were relegated to the dumps or worse were brought back with interesting strategies. I mean, I don't think anybody ever predicted crickets making a comeback. And there's some other cards that are becoming more important, or at least seeing a little bit more play. And so I'm totally down for rejuvenating existing stuff or making at least other play lines possible. But I probably won't play it myself that much.
Yeah, crickets would be amazing if Creeper didn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd be phenomenal right now. Like, if Indiglo Creeper wasn't a thing. And they're still good. It's just Creeper does a lot of the same stuff and it's just so good. But, yeah, I always like that too. I mean, it's cool to have some cards that are they don't see a lot of play, get some support, and come back out and see play. I mean, I do think there's a lot of stuff out there that's pretty good that just isn't explored, and we've talked about that before. Stuff like Mirror Spirit, where I really think Mirror Spirit was always good. Schmendrix is right that Crab does help with the 0 attack ones. I was playing him in Jericho before, where I was making a Mirror Spirit 0 and then blinking it to turn it back into a big one, and that was cool. And there were other ways to do it, but yeah, Crab was just such a consistent way to make use of that, so it does make it better. Stuff like Ghostly Mount, I think Ghostly Mount is good. I think Xander can make Ghostly Mount really good by being able to recur those allies and always have a target to mount up, even if the little guys are dying. And that 4/2 first strike mount, it can get ice trapped, and so can your ally. So everything gets ice trapped, right? Ice trap's good, but that thing's awesome. that 4/2 charge thing. And I play the deck with 3 copies of the book and 3 copies of Resonance, and a lot of times can get the focus online in round 2 or round 3 and get the Nightmare Mount out. And I've had really good success with that, but I think there's other stuff in the pool too. But as long as, Nick is, I think, a guy that's always going to be on top of stuff like that. And, he has his finger on the metagame and will be able to give support where support is needed.
Yeah.
But,
what stops Fate Reflection on a crescendo?
Oh,
sure does.
Yes. It's one of those cards where it needs to be played more, or I need to play it more, and it always gets cut as like the 31st card, and I don't know why, because it probably could save a lot of games, but
I love Spectral Assassin.
I mean, it's great with herders, especially.
It's amazing with them.
Yeah.
I've got quite a few decks that run Spectral Assassin, and that Xander deck could probably use a Spectral Assassin. That'd be an excellent first 5 card, as a matter of fact.
That would have been your win.
There you go.
Yeah. It's where were you last week when I was building the deck?
Just didn't see it. Yeah.
Posting in the chat. Where's your Spectral Assassin?
Spectral Assassin is another one of those cards that I think, Crickets, Night Song Cricket, if it weren't so powerful to play Creepers in Hope, I can imagine people expanding a little bit to that kind of card, because swinging with Hope with a Void Pulse in hand and turning off your opponent's ability to Golden Veil or Fate Reflect it seems really freaking strong to me. But it doesn't compete with.
It's also a conjuration limit of 1 too, which I just wish it wasn't, because you could have at least a couple, extra tricks up your sleeve, especially with Double Down now.
But Hope would duplicate it.
I know. It would get crazy, but it was just one of those cards where every time I was like, man, I just wish I could have 2 of them. Yeah, instead of having to pack, with three of the summon to get them out. But anyway, let's move on. I mean, I guess given that we were talking about some interesting cards and things, that are out in the wild during AshCon, what is either the one or two decks that you've seen lately in the last 2 weeks that are just really cool to you?
I love the Dread Wraith deck that was on stream. And, we talked about supporting Dread Wraith, and I don't know who played that deck. I think their name began with M, and it was someone that I don't think we see on the forums, or I'm sorry, on the Discord and stuff a lot. But I feel like this person was in AshCon.
Yeah, let me find
Who
it.
is it?
They were in my pod. They were in my pod. I'm gonna find them real quick.
And I feel like the last time there was an AshCon, like, that person was there too, playing a Dread Wraith deck. I feel like this isn't the first time I've seen this. But, really cool use of Fiona's ability to play 2 Dread Wraiths in the first round. And, I mean, I know Dread Wraith isn't a great card, but you put 12 life on the board. That's a lot of life to deal with, man. And then throw a meteor on top of that, which is what he did. To, I think Lizzie was playing a 3-book Fighting Spirit Lulu or something, and these little conjurations can't stand up to the meteor. And then you've got but the Dread Wraiths are perfectly cool with taking a couple damage, and are still alive to swing in for a bunch. That's a really cool play line, and like Schmendrick said earlier, it's something you can do in closed lists to catch somebody off guard, and and get some good use out of those cards. It's really tough to. It's tough to look at a die spread, even when you see 6+ ceremonial dice and a couple divine. Maybe you're thinking Fallen or something, but it's really hard to put your opponent on double Dread Wraith Meteor.
It's not what you see every day, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's Mephi who.
Okay.
MEPHE who ran.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they played it.
I think they're Mephisto or something like that on Ashteki.
Yeah, Mephisto. I played them. They were in my pod, so I also had to play them. And I only won because I slow played. Basically, they meditated up, and I didn't know what was coming, but it seemed like they aggressively meditated to Meteor, and so I just wanted to go slow, especially once the Dread Wraith book came out, and so I was able to play I think it was a herder after they dropped the Meteor. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. That one and like the Realm Walker hunting weapons, there's some really powerful first fives in closed list that actually really benefit from, in some ways, rely on your opponent playing a normal game of Ashes and you're just doing something deeply weird and different. But if they like aggressively pass or slow play, it can actually cause a big problem for those decks because they are in some ways tuned to your opponent playing fair. And if your opponent just kind of sits there and dirtles, like it's difficult.
Yeah, but it is. I like the fact that there are these different formats, right? I wouldn't want to be locked into either
for sure
open or closed because sometimes you want to play those games where the surprise factor or the ability at least to not be figured out the week before is part of the game plan. And then other times you want that like puzzle where it's like, okay, here's the information I have. Now I've got to guess whether it's going to be straightforward or it's a bluff. And then, it turns into like a bluff, double bluff type of game. And those can be really exciting moments as well. AshCon was super fun. I think there was a String Mage deck that was Red King's deck. I've seen a lot of String Mage lately, so maybe Schmendrix, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I watched so I played this one too, actually. It was my last match before AshCon, and I was trying to decide between my own Rin Whale deck and an Echo deck, and I played Red King, and he ran this Rin Whale deck with String Mage against me. And so the core of the deck is String Mage, Small Sacrifice, um, Radiant Leviathan or Whale, um, which has effectively the shield mage ability that your opponent can attack units you control. Although the Whale, you can attack the Leviathan, you just can't attack anything else. And so the idea is you hide your string mage behind the Leviathan and you small sack anything away. It also runs 3x body inversion so that you can then turn the Leviathan into a 5/3 or make the string mage a 3/1. And I think it has essence druids as well. It's got mist spirits if he's in a matchup where he feels like he needs bodies. But basically, it then also has a bunch of other big knights. So I think it's a 5-color deck. And so you keep your opponent's value units down with small sacrifice on your string mage, which enables you in the same turn to put out 2 pings of 1 damage, and the second one is a wound, so it gets around Snapper's ability. And then build up this board state of knights, really stressing your opponent's ability of removal. I think Leviathan is already really hard to remove, and then they can't attack the knights when the Leviathan is still there, and there are very few decks that pack enough hard removal to manage that board state effectively. And I'm really excited by it because I think it deals with a lot of the really high value stuff we see. It's got Golden Veils to stop Tristan. I think it has the potential to be really strong.
I'm interested in more, not just whale decks where it helps the sort of that defensive aspect of the game where that I think has been lacking a little bit or hasn't been seen as much. But the string mage is something I want to try out and build. And I'll give a shout out to Clue as well because I kind of wanted to mention it 2 weeks ago. Maybe I did. But then he, like a couple days later, actually published his article all about his Herald string mage deck. And I think it was a super cool write-up because he actually went through, I think, 7 versions of that deck and talked all about his thought process from, how the core idea developed or formed, and then the support pieces that he added around it and why, and then based off of his experience in games, what tweaks he made, and he listed all the versions too, so you can actually see the evolution. And I just thought that was really cool, and it was I think it's a good resource for anybody to look at and just sort of understand how you start with an idea and then modify it iteratively to the point where it's competitive, or at least it's solid in all matchups. And that was something actually that Schmendrix, you sent the video. It was for Netrunner, but it was the same sort of idea. It was like how to make, I forget the title, how to make Jank good or something like that, or using Jank as a tool to develop these decks where the fundamental thing is, what is your core idea? And then once you have a core idea, how do you support that? And that doesn't just mean like taking it to the extreme. It means like what pieces in certain matchups or pieces that you need to include in the deck. And I thought that was a really good video too. I posted in the Discord, but maybe it's also something that we link.
Yeah, I'll link the deck and stuff in the comments. I can't pull it up on the screen right now, but I'll link Red King's deck, and we can link that one too. Clue's article in the comments on the YouTube, and throw it out in the Discords. Well, I mean, it's there.
I almost wonder if that would be a neat idea, for us, or it doesn't have to be us, but I just kind of think that would be a neat idea, whether you had 2 or 3 people where you have a deck idea and, maybe 25 out of the 30 cards are the same, and you put your own little spin or flourish on it, and then you take it, all to the same tournament, whether it's AIL, Shuffle Bus, AshCon, and just see how it performs, because there is obviously a huge amount of piloting that makes the difference in decks, and sometimes that can be really hard to separate out from the deck itself. So if you can get more data on a given type of deck, like an archetype, then I think that would be really interesting just to experiment with, and then you can iterate, or you can say, yeah, this idea works or it doesn't work, junk it and start something else. And team bonding and whatever is another aspect. All right. So I want to keep this momentum going, just like you would if you were leaning forward on a Segway. So segueing into the next segment is, I guess, the Jank Tank. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we asked some people to build a deck around Living Doll.
That card we're talking about,
and Schmendrix, you were the one who was selected from our side to do it.
So
we got,
and B, generating
it was, I guess, low submission. We got Shadowfire, who is,
all the time,
I guess you could say, my deck building partner. We do a lot of late
if you look at
night deck builds. He submitted one, which is pretty cool. And I guess, Killer, are you going to end up bringing it up on screen later on?
Yeah, I have it up on the screen.
So what about
okay, cool. So it's a no debt list.
What if we
so the only requirement was really that it has to have Living Doll in it.
Instead of doubting whether they can
so,
get into a
Killer, what do
server by
you
breaking
think? Like,
ice.
did you get a chance to look at this deck and
Ice Suit became
Schmenny's deck?
very minimal. We decided that
I did.
Sentries were the most playable cards, and
I like
Ice
them
is still
both.
good enough for you to include some of it.
Clue's
and have
deck,
the
or I'm
runner
sorry,
respect it,
Shadowfire's
install
deck
the breakers, install
stands
the
out to me
boat.
for a lot of reasons.
But it
when I build,
when
I
we
build
were
doll
forced
decks,
into a situation where we couldn't
like I said last week, I love doll. It's
spend
one of my favorite
much
cards.
resources on the ice.
I like
that we were
Xander a
actually
lot with doll
picked
because
3 times Anemone because of the thing that we want to
anything
do.
that does
Keep
main
them
action
moving.
damage.
And we picked 3 times Orochi, which was a find
to
by
the
Heinzel
doll,
that
right?
was amazing.
And does other
we just
stuff.
Dropped into our group chat and went
is
to
really
bed,
good.
and we were like, yeah, this is
with
the
Living
card
Doll
that we
because you
needed.
can
because
get
Orochi
that
was
immediate
cheap,
side
and
action burn
it
value
did all the
out
things
of
we wanted to, and the runner
the doll right
pretty
away.
much was forced to either break it or pay 3 to
And,
not have the sub fire, and then you could do
so he
some
went with
human things
Odette
with
instead of
advancement tokens that
Xander.
it gives you.
I don't know if I
Okay, so
like the
we have a deck that has decided
enter
ice
the
is
fray
bad.
your own
We're
Living
using
Doll
fear
and
instead. So we're
burn
double
quite
advancing
as
stuff
much,
with mitosis
but
or manually,
that's
and
here,
then have the runner
right? Is something
not
that you
run
can
our
do.
things because
And
not because they
it's-
can't.
I mean, there
get
is
in,
something to
but
be
because
said
they don't
for
want to get in. Okay, so we have 2 types of cards
getting
now that
2
we are
Phoenix Born
threatening the
damage
runner
every
with.
round
On
for
one
no
side, advanced
dice,
cards. On the other side, unadvanced cards.
right?
The advanced
Just by
cards
enter
could
the
be
fray on
traps
your
or
own
gens.
doll and then
So
side action pain link to
the
the Phoenix
50-50
Born
here
is
is
pretty
clear.
cool.
It's either Cerebral or an Urtica.
Yeah, I mean, he also
he's
has
got a-
small
but he has
sack.
a-
It is an agenda that we want to score.
Yeah, he does,
So the
right?
runner
That's
is
the that's
kind
the
of
basic
forced
thing,
into
right? He's got a lot of stuff that
deciding
does
which
main
of
action
those to
damage
run,
here, right? Small
or, like,
sacrifice, 3
ignoring
copies
all
of
of them,
that,
trying
use
to
3
win somewhere
gilders.
else, and then
You know
we
what?
can
You can
use
do the
that
same
to our
thing with
advantage.
2 anchor
The advanced
knots,
cards could be either
even
useful
close
for us
combat,
or like stuff like snares or stings.
which is
typically.
I mean,
So
it's not going to do
useful cards
anything
for us would be
normally, but
Moonpool,
like
which allows us to
he can side action
an
amplify and then main
instant
action
speed
close
add
combat
advancement tokens to a thing.
to
That could mean
to
either we want to
deal
score
3
something
damage
out
with the
with
doll,
advanced
right?
cards,
Yeah,
like
that
with
would be cool.
something that's on the
Love
board
to
that we
see
can
that.
combo with other
and
stuff.
put a
Or
loot
if
on
the
the
runner
doll and
has
then next
decided
turn
to run a
pain
serial
link it off,
overwriter,
which
we
is
can make it
I think
worse by
hilarious.
using Moonpool and putting additional tokens.
I don't know
So
if he
typically
thought
this
about
means-
that, but I'm guessing he did when he put this
So,
together.
yeah.
He also has
And
redirect,
typically
which
this
is another
means
great
double
card
advanced
with
cerebral
doll.
becomes a
And,
quadruple
you take
advanced cerebral and
2
just
damage
ends the
from
game
Enter
pretty
the
much on
Fray.
spot.
And as a matter of fact,
Obviously
redirect
now, after this first approach, we realized that we need to
is
mix
interesting
up
because you
these
can
advanced and
so you
unadvanced
can
cards as
and this is
well.
something I've never
Sometimes
seen
we ended
happen,
up
but
not
could happen,
advancing
right?
cerebral because the
So
runner
Odette
would
can enter
be
the
more,
fray,
enticed
like
to run
a
our
2
not
attack
advanced cards
unit,
because that's where the useful
right,
stuff
and
lies.
kill the unit,
And then we
take 2
could use our
damage, but then
Moonpool to
redirect
give
it
them
to the
2 core
doll.
damage
Yeah.
from out of nowhere.
And then
from an
pain
unadvanced
link
card,
right
which was
away.
also a strong thing to do.
That's actually pretty
Also,
cool.
we
Like
realized that
if you
the-
did that on a
Yeah,
creeper or
that's-
something.
that's really
cards
cool.
Like Rashida's, Moonpools, we could put out
And
with
you know,
mitosis.
again, don't know if he thought through
So we
that,
mitosis
but
out
I hope he did
a
because I
Moonpool
think
and
the
a
combo is
clearinghouse or
really
something.
cool.
The runner doesn't check
With
them
doll,
because
so-
they're afraid of traps, and,
And
then we
you
have
know,
a
and he's got
2
Nature's
cards that do
Ration,
something
which I
for us.
skipped over, right?
The
Another
Moonpool doesn't
main
even use
action
the advancement tokens on it, but
deal
the
damage to your
tokens
doll deck.
kind
their
of
card,
ice
and
the
then
card
paywink it. So a
and
lot of
help us
that's
make
why I
it
like this
stick,
deck, and I
so
would,
that we can
you
assemble
know,
a board state
if we're
that will win
we're
the game.
Jank Tanking here, why I picked
So
this
typically
one
what ended
to
up was that
invest in,
by
because
installing all of these
it had
cards,
so
we
many
went kind of
cool
poor, but a
different
lot of
ways
cards
to,
lay around
you know,
with
make
2 or
Living
3 or 4
Doll
advancement tokens
do
on
its
them.
thing.
So we
And
realized,
it's got a
okay,
ton of
now
removal. I
if
mean,
we
you know, in a
use,
lot of lists that
if you have those
I've
cards
seen
lying around, we
lately,
want to use them somehow. So
are maybe
we realized that
lacking
if a clearinghouse lies
in
around,
that
then it's
area,
good
but
because we can just
you know,
do that.
aside from the
And then
small
typically,
sack, you've
maybe
got the
kill the
Gilder
runner with
pings, and he's got
some
3 of those
scores
books,
together with Neurospike,
which I think is really
or
interesting.
Trick of Light, the tokens
And
that lie
then the
around, and
Anchornauts
then
add the
win
ping,
that
the
way.
Fire
We
Archer,
tried both, and
it's
actually
fine, you
like
got
swift
for
and
burn.
swapped around
But
lot
then the
between
Festers,
Neurospike
the Wraths, the
and
Sword of Virtues,
Trick of
then
Light.
Ice Traps
But
on
in the
top
end,
of
the
that.
deck that we
I
played
mean,
was
this thing,
Neurospike because we felt like
I feel like
was
this
the
would
more
be
unexpected
problematic.
one
And then, of
that
course,
caught
because
more
you're in
people off guard.
ceremonial,
And still,
you can recur the
as we
Beast Tamer
think
or the
about
Living
going into a
Dolls if you
tournament,
run
we
out of
think
them
about
or you
playing
met
this
them
deck in
away.
Swiss,
Um,
where players
it's
usually
just,
don't
it seems like a
remember the game,
pain.
so they're getting.
So Gilder is a really important unit to the deck, just because Living Doll, when it's out there, gets a lot of hate. It's a target, and Gilder is really good at unit guarding to keep the Living Doll around on the board. Additionally, we don't have Golden Veil in here to keep the doll out there and safe from removal spells. And it's kind of the main win con of the deck, so it needs to be protected. However, having 3 copies of Gilder, you know, with Odette's 5 Battlefield might be a lot and cause some clog issues.
I think the idea is probably if you are running 3 Gilders and you get clogged up, then you have the redirect as well. But I would probably I have a feeling that close combat is probably a nice trick, but it would be better as a veil. So that would maybe be the only real change. Because you're already going to be running Bear and 3 Gilders, so that eats into virtually all of your nature.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I was going to take card out, I mean, maybe you take out 1 redirect, but the amplifies and the close combats would be the cards on the chopping block for me, probably. And yeah, Golden Veil I think is a snap ad for decks, especially if we're trying to keep the doll around. Then I think you should, because it's kind of a win con here, like Schmendrick said. Between that and Bear, so you know, I think that's an easy thing to do. I wonder about a Generosity. And
maybe.
I mean, I don't
to get the cards.
Well, to do all kinds of things. You know, if you play Generosity and pick the heal, especially if they're in a situation where they don't have a lot of stuff to unexhaust. I mean, resetting Enter the Fray is amazing. Right? So if you can find a way to do that without sacrificing, you know, I mean, if you're just going to do it to Enter the Fray the doll and put 2 damage on them, then it doesn't make sense, because they get the 2 heal, right? But if you can find a way to, you know, to maybe you pick draw or you pick heal or whatever, and then they leave you with the reset, that's great. If not, then they're going to let you draw, and I think this deck is going to like to draw into stuff like redirect, stuff like ice trap, stuff like focus, small sacrifice. So that'd be an interesting, maybe a one of or something, but
yeah, I mean, I like the amplify. You know, you've got 2 Anchornauts and 3 Gilders, so I don't think you're ever lacking. And I mean, worst case, Living Doll, like in a real pinch. I don't think you're lacking for the ability to leverage it, but one of Generosity, like you could just drop 1 redirect and slot 1 in, lowers your curve a little bit, and then yeah, that's an interesting thought. Overall though, I just think that this is a really cool list. I feel like I would have some struggle against the constant source, like especially if, you know, you're playing an efficiency deck. The Gilder pings, you know, with the small sack pings, with everything else, is just going to add up. and be really tricky.
Yeah,
And then
there's
if you
a lot of damage.
Yeah, and if you go the other route and you're playing knights, you're still gonna get got because of Ping Fester or Sword of Virtue, or worst case, Gilder swings at you with Amplified. It's bad news all around. Let's take a look at your lists, Shmeny.
Cactus jumping in here real quick to pick up Schmendrick's audio for us. Kind of like I said earlier, Schmendrick's built this deck out of Xander because it's he has really good synergy with Living Doll between Earthquake to help with board wipes, puts damage on the doll, can pass it back on to the other Phoenixborn, and also Reincarnate helps get the doll back out of the discard pile so we can keep putting it back on the board over and over. Got some other things in there. Crescendo is a good card here with doll. Schmendrick's is using Sympathy, the other parallel cost to doll instead of Charm, which allows him to get into Crescendo, and that's another way to get damage on the doll with that 1 damage from Crescendo that you can Pain Link over to the Phoenixborn. Also going with Meteors because we're in Divine anyway for Xander, and we have a kind of a board wipe theme, and Meteor will put damage on that doll as well. Might not want a 3 damage Meteor to hit to kill the doll, but you can do a 1 or 2 damage Meteor, get a lot of pressure on the opponent's battlefield, and still be able to Pain Link that on your next turn back to the other Phoenixborn. So really just trying to control the battlefield here through strong action spells that also synergize with doll a bit and have that doll on the board as extra pressure to close out the game.
Yeah, I mean, in this deck, it feels like Living Doll is the burn backup, just because you have so many other aggressive units. You've got the Grave Knight, you've got the Master Vampire, and then you have a lot of, you have the full package of reaction burns. Yeah, and then you got a lot of cool tricks of pulling some cards back, like you've got Shared Sorrow. Killer, what would you like? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm trying to stop geeking out over Enter the Fray into Redirect into Living Doll. I think that's ridiculously cool. But so I mean, looking at this one, I mean, you guys called out Shared Sorrow. I'm not going to touch on it because I'm very, very low on Shared Sorrow. However, again, the stuff that does main action damage here is cool. The Crescendo, is a main action damage, right? It's you're swinging as a main action and getting to put that 1 damage, and Doll's the perfect place to do that. Also River Scald, I mean, it's just a one of, right? But I mean, you can River Scald your own Living Doll and Pain Link and that way too, which is interesting. And obviously, like I said before, I think Xander's kind of a perfect place for a doll because between Reincarnate and Earthquake, his whole package kind of supports it. So I like that. But the deck otherwise is just kind of a solid, mid-range / reach with burn deck and has good control pieces in it. I don't know about the Ancestor Spirit book. I think there might be like a Lightbringer or something might be better. Ancestor Spirit, like, I hate that I have to meditate for it, and it doesn't do a whole lot, Like, it draws the card.
But not in round 1 when you want to be doing stuff.
Yeah. Right, and that's what I struggle with it. I almost threw one into the cheese deck that I've been working on, and I backed it back out. But otherwise, like, I thought I had a use for it there. I was like, "Cool, this might actually matter." But then I can't even put it there. I don't know. I don't like Ancestor Spirits unless I'm getting 2 of them with Remia for playing an ally. But so I mean, Lightbringer I think might be good here with the you have some like Treatment said, some of these aggressive units that might benefit from Lightbringer kind of screwing up their blockers, and you have, between Earthquakes and Fester, a lot of ways to get the exhausted Lightbringers off the board, which is always kind of an issue with Lightbringer, I feel like. So that might be a good thing here. But otherwise, I like the kind of allied toolbox. I think that fits Xander really well. I like the one of choke for a first 5 flex. I like the reach with burn. So otherwise, yeah, I think it's solid.
Yeah, I was just looking at it and then the numbers, and I think maybe the only thing that stands out to me, other than the Ancestor Spear, which I haven't been a fan of, is 3 meteors on 3 divine. That to me feels like it's going to be tight, especially since one of those, in theory, is always allocated to the Linus. So I just you already have Earthquake. I just think 3 is probably too much. And one idea, and this is probably just outright bad, but given that we were talking about String Mage earlier, I think that's kind of a neat ally that you could throw in that combos well with String Doll or with Living Doll as well. But it also addresses sort of those efficiency units. So if you had Lightbringer and you have Winged Lioness, you're putting a lot of pressure on being able to pick apart their defenses, and then you have the Living Doll for the little bit of burn, and then you have String Mage either to clear off the really small efficient guys or to keep your Living Doll alive as well. So there's a lot of but that's definitely going into more of the combo deck and hoping that those pieces land. But I think, if you're just running a one of, it's probably not the end of the world. And when it does come up, it'll probably be, especially with it also helps against all the token decks, right? It doesn't just have to be moving wounds around. But they're both cool decks.
The Ancestors. Yeah, I think if you were to take the Ancestors out and put a Lightbringer in, then you're probably good to add a 4th Divine die over a Sympathy die, and then maybe those Meteors look a little better. I know you would have 2 Divine Spellbooks then, and an ability that uses Divine. But, you're not going to reincarnate every round. You're probably not even going to Lightbringer every round. So you might find some openings for those Meteors.
So, in terms of if you had to pick one, I guess it come down to Killer and I deciding.
I'll vote for the Odette, says Schmendrix.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Well, Killer, what would be your pick?
I think I like the Odette only for... it has so many cool doll things, and Xander just beat me an hour ago, so I'm mad at him. And he not only did he beat me, I also lost as him. So I'm doubly angry at Xander, so I'm going to pick Odette.
Yeah, man, I could really go either way. I think it really comes down to your preference of play. Xander has the higher life pool and the extra slot. So I'll go with Xander. Both decks I think need maybe 2 to 3 cards that I would tweak, but otherwise they're both really cool in my books. So yeah, I'm going to cheat and say Odette yes to both.
Yeah. Odette has Enter the Fray, Redirect, Pain Link, which again I'm geeking out over. I think that's so cool. Yeah. It's it's on my bucket list of cool things to do in Ashes now, so.
So I know that we're running tight on time. I was thinking, yeah, we'll get to
the Wheel of Jank.
We're gonna have to get to the Wheel of Jank, and I'm hoping that in future weeks, because it's something that I think given that we're doing these challenges, it would be cool to start maybe not a full segment or anything, but small pointers on actually the deck building approach. So it's just been on my mind a lot, the Netrunner video, the way Clue described his process, and even just a lot of my own deck building lately. I'm sort of going from a core idea, whether that's janky, whether that's net decking something, whether it's a theme, and then sort of how you guys take it from there, or how we each sort of look at that process, and all the way up to selecting the dice spreads, how we figure those out, because I think that's a useful tool for a lot of players, especially new players. And I think it would just be interesting for us to talk about and see like the different ways when we look at either a deck list, what we see in it, or how we approach our own deck builds as we continue along. But enough about me. Killer, this is your spin moment.
All right. So I think, by the way, I don't think we need to pick one of the three of us to build a deck. I think we can all build one with whatever this is. And then maybe like throughout the next 2 weeks, we can, between the three of us, decide which one of the ones we want to put up against whoever we like from the community that sends one in. Maybe we do it that way. But we need the community people to send some more stuff in too, so that we have a bunch of other ones to look at. So I urge you guys to play the Wheel of Jank with us. And send in your decks, but I will spin it now. Oh man, we even got like a sound effect. You guys hear that?
No, not on our chat.
No? I want to see if it comes through. It has landed on healing units as the Jank idea. So we're going to build decks that include ways to heal up your units, take some damage and heal them up. So, I mean, stuff like Mass Heal comes to mind, stuff like Sun Sister. There's just a couple ways to do it.
Yeah, I think that counts. Butterfly Monk.
Shining Hydra. I mean, there's lots of stuff you can do. But so not a specific card this week, just an idea. All right, take some damage on your units and then take it off.
I was just building a deck the other day where I was just really spread on dice. Like I was doing my counts and I'm like, there's no way I need 15 dice to support the amount of class costs I have. And so I was like, yeah, well, a lot of the units are 2 or 3 life. How about I throw in some mass heals, which could be interesting. And then I started wondering, like, I don't think I've ever built a deck with Sun Sister. And even Shield Mage. So I added those to our list. This is before you, I think, created the wheel. But that'll be a fun challenge.
Yeah. Sun Sister's a card that I keep trying to put in decks, and I think it's better than it gets credit for.
And this is the time to start shooting stuff with Blood Archers and then healing them back up, says Shemendrix.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
Actually, Blood Archer is... I didn't submit my deck, but I have a deck where it's Living Doll and Blood Archer. And it's a cool little combo as well. All right, so there you go. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. So we've got healing units as the theme. Hopefully we get a bunch of submissions this time around. We got 2 weeks. Things are slowing down a little bit, and maybe that'll prompt people to start building some decks. Is there anything you guys, anything you want to sign off with, or any last words of advice?
Yeah, tell us what you want to hear about, too. I mean, if there's other things that we're not talking about that the Ashes community wants to hear, let us know. We did the podcast because we like to deck build and do things, and we want to spend a good chunk of it on that, but we also want to make sure that we're talking about all things Ashes, right? And touching on all the hot topics. So if there's anything out there you want to hear, let us know. We'll cover it.
Yeah, I mean, we have a list of ideas, but they're not exclusive. Hopefully, over the coming, months, we'll talk about tier lists and obviously the different approaches to deck building, and then a little, bunch of different segment ideas that I think we've all come up with that'll be cool to introduce over time. But the format itself is flexible, I think, and ideally, as the only and therefore best podcast, we aim to do what the community wants. So on that note, that's been episode 2 of the Jankyard. Killer, do you got that sign off from the music from Ben?
No, I don't, and he didn't give me anything for it, but that's okay. I'm gonna put whatever I put in there last week, and in the meantime, we're gonna take the jank to the bank.
All right, he's fired.
Yeah. All right, take care, guys. We'll be back.
All right, take the jank to the bank?
I guess. That's
that's
still what we're going with.
That's still what we're going with. Have a good 2 weeks.
All right, guys.
Later.